Not oh, being recorded. Okay, thank you. So let's pray to Srila Prabhupada. Nam Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pushtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivasisha Sunyavadi Vashtatara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so I see Mavla Vangalatika, I can see her hand up there, so you can begin with text 31. So just context, Arjuna is now explained to Krishna, or is explaining to Krishna, why he doesn't, the various reasons why he can't bring himself to fight. So this is where we're picking it up.
Okay.
Yes.
Text 31. Achashrayo nupasyami advasva jana mahave nakankse vijayam Krishna nacharajyam sukani cha. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Purport. Without knowing that one's self-interest is in Vishnu or Krishna, conditioned souls are attracted by bodily relationships, hoping to be happy in such situations. In such a blind conception of life, they forget even the causes of material happiness. Arjuna appears to have even forgotten the moral codes for a Kshatriya. It is said that two kinds of men, namely the Kshatriya who dies directly in front of the battlefield under Krishna's personal orders, and the person in the renounced order of life who is absolutely devoted to spiritual culture, are eligible to enter into the sun globe, which is so powerful and dazzling. Arjuna is reluctant even to kill his enemies, let alone his relatives. He thinks that by killing his kinsmen there would be no happiness in his life, and therefore he is not willing to fight, just as a person who does not feel hunger is not inclined to cook. Did we not read this one?
Wow, you can remember from 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago?
I can't remember the hunger and cooking thing. And yeah, but as a Kshatriya, he requires a kingdom for his subsistence. Because the Kshatriyas cannot engage themselves in any other occupation, but Arjuna has no kingdom. Arjuna's sole opportunity for gaining a kingdom lies in fighting with his cousins and brothers and reclaiming the kingdom inherited from his father, which he does not like to do. Therefore, he considers himself fit to go to the forest and live a life of frustration. Yeah, I read this verse last week.
Okay, was it?
Last time.
Did we do Bhagavad Gita last week?
No, we didn't. But I mean, the last time we read, I did this verse.
Well, that's very good. You remembered from the last time we did it. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Very good. So what we do is we do as I normally do on a Friday night on Bhagavad Gita Sangha. If everyone present, we can all take turns to read one verse and purport. Okay, I think that'd be nice. So, how many with us tonight? Let's see how many devotees. How many are we here? 10. Wow, it's amazing. Hare Krishna. So, if we could all take turns in reading a verse and purport, that'd be very nice. And now this. Here, what the reason then is described from text 31, from here to text 35. Arjuna is describing his second reason for not wanting to fight. Yeah, he basically he will suffer and he will not enjoy. He will not enjoy. Yeah, they may win the battle, but he will suffer. Yeah, okay, those who are killed may be elevated, but because Arjuna is the instrument of the death of his family members, then he will get a bad reaction. Yeah, so he will be overcome with simple activities. So this is Arjuna's second reason for not wanting to fight. And it is Yeah, if there's any questions about this, please feel free to ask. Yeah, Arjuna is a Kshatriya, he's a fighter. So Prabhupada mentions he seems to have forgotten the moral codes of a Kshatriya, which is to always fight. That's their dharma. That's how they become purified, by executing their occupational duty. Yep. Different than the Brahmanas have a different dharma. I think there's some verses in the Mahabharata that describes the dharma of a Brahman is to offer ghee into the fire, and the dharma of a Kshatriya is to shoot arrows into the enemy. That's the specific different dharmas. So Arjuna seems to have forgotten that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prabhu, which chapter and text we're reading? Can you remind me, please?
We're at chapter 1, text 31.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's have someone, Mother Sachari, of your hand. You can read text 32 to 35. Just with translation, sure.
If the sound is a bit not clear, please let me know. Someone else can read.
Today's much better.
Today's better.
Okay. Yeah.
Text 32 to 35. Kim no rajyena govinda, kim bhoger jivitena va, yesham arte kankshitam no, rajyam bhoga sukhani cha. Taime vasishta yuddhe, pranam tyakta dhanani cha, acharya pitra putras tataiva cha, pitamaha, mautula swasura pautra, selya sambandhanasisthatha, etanaha hantam ichchami, gnatopi madhusudana, apitrailokya rajasya hetokimna mahikrite, nihatya dhritarashtrana kapritasya janardana.
Okay,
Oh,
well done.
Govinda.
Well done. You read the Sanskrit, but you don't have to. But you read it. It's nice. No problem. You have a choice. Hare Krishna. Carry on. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh Govinda, of what it avail to use?
To
Oh
us.
Govinda, of what avail to us or a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, father-in-law, grandson, brother-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Purport. Arjuna has addressed Lord Krishna as Govinda because Krishna is the object of pleasure for cows and the senses. By using this significant word, Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses, but Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our senses are satisfied. Materially, everyone wants to satisfy his senses, and he wants God to be the order supplier for such satisfaction. The Lord will satisfy the senses of the living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may covet. But when one takes the opposite way, namely, when one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all desires of living entity are satisfied. Arjuna's deep affection for community and family members is exhibited here, partly due to his natural compassion for them. He is therefore not prepared to fight. Everyone wants to show his opulence to friends and relatives, but Arjuna fears that all his relatives and friends will be killed on the battlefield, and he will be unable to share his opulence after victory. This is a typical calculation of material life. The transcendental life, however, is different. Since a devotee wants to satisfy the desires of the Lord, Lord willingly accepts all kinds of opulence for the service of the Lord. And if the Lord is not willing, he should not accept a farthing. Arjuna did not want to kill his relatives, and if there were any need to kill them, he desired that Krishna kill them personally. At this point, he did not know that Krishna had already killed them before their coming into the battlefield, and that he was only to become an instrument for Krishna. This fact is disclosed in the following chapters. As a natural devotee of the Lord, Arjuna did not like to retaliate against his miscreant cousins, but it was the Lord's plan that they should all be killed. The devotee of the Lord does not retaliate against the wrongdoer, but the Lord does not tolerate any mischief done to the devotee by the miscreants. The Lord can excuse a person on his own account, but he excuses no one who has done harm to his devotees. Therefore, the Lord was determined to kill the miscreants, although Arjuna wanted to excuse them.
Okay, thank you. So here, there's a commentary here. Krishna at the end of, Arjuna at the end of these verses, he calls Krishna Janardhan. So Ardhana or Jana means persons and Ardhana means killer. So that's Krishna Janardhana, by his potency or by his will. In other words, he is untouched. Krishna is untouched if he is killing, because persons get liberated. So in other words, Arjuna is using this word because he's saying to Krishna that if they are killed by you, because you're the remover of the earth's burden, so you should kill them. And if you kill them, there's going to be no sinful reaction because you're the supreme controller. So again, in this way, Arjuna wants to be free of any sinful reaction. Now, so I'm having trouble on the computer here. It's going different places. Okay, so this is a very basic principle which we're learning to do in our Krishna consciousness, is we're learning to live and act for the satisfaction of someone other than ourselves. Yeah. Ultimately, it's Krishna, but ultimately that's done in the first instance by acting according to the instructions of the spiritual master. Yeah, we're trying to serve the spiritual master, who in turn is serving his spiritual master and ultimately Krishna. So it's a basic definition of material life. One is we all heard the word selfish. Did anybody get accused by their parents of being selfish? I did plenty of times, because I had a sister, and of course we used to get things and I used to steal everything. My mother is, stop being selfish, give some to your sister, give some sweets to yours. Simply put, but that's what the material world is about. It's about satisfying the self. But the spiritual world is different. Everyone is trying to please the transcendental senses of Krishna. And therefore, by doing that, Prabhupada describes it, then by the grace of Govinda, all desires of the living entity are satisfied. Now, was it here Krishna mentioned, he gave some scope for satisfying one's own senses. Remember reading that? But not to covert, not to try and enjoy more than what one is allotted. Was that here? Was that in the last verse we read? Let me just go back. No, it's here. Anyone? I want to find that. Let me just bear with me 1 minute. Just want to find that.
Prabhu, it's on the 7th line from the top, page 62.
Right, 7th line from top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Covert. Is the word covert here?
Yes.
It's
I
the
can't
Lord
see.
will satisfy the senses, and then it
Okay.
says, correct.
Yeah, the Lord will satisfy the sense of the living entity as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may covert. That means there's enough for everyone's, another way of putting this, there's enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. Yeah. So according to our need, Krishna, we will feel satisfied. Now, modern materialistic society is 100% geared to supplying you or tantalizing you with things that you don't actually need. Yeah, it's artificial. To create an artificial, I could say, an artificial desire to accumulate and enjoy. I don't know if anyone's ever watched this documentary, which some devotees put me onto a number of years ago. It's called The Age of the Self. Anyone's familiar with that? It's a well-done documentary. It explains, it's basically, the documentary is focused on the change in the mentality of people in the 40s and 50s, say, where persons, or shops or products were sold really to satisfy one's basic needs, But then in the 50s, actually, in the later 50s, it actually changed. And there was someone called Bernard Mazzei, I think I got the second name wrong, but he was an expert, I forget the word name. He was an expert at creating a commercial need for products, to create a greed within people so that they would buy things. You understand? Therefore, the economy will go up. It's interesting how it was explained, how he managed to, through propaganda and in various different ways, he convinced the American people that they should never be satisfied with the basic things in life, but they can accumulate more and more and more, more and more and more. And that's why we have the modern shopping high street. Yeah, so many useless things to actually buy, things we don't actually need. I mean, I say this because I'm sitting in an office in Tottenham Court Road, and I'm looking over Tottenham Court Road now. I can see before me Planet Organic. Next to that is some city shop called Flying Tiger from Copenhagen. Another city shop selling is Pro Cook. Another one like that. You understand? So how mankind, or modern materialistic mankind, has gone completely crazy in trying to trying to satisfy their senses. But the phenomena is that they cannot be really satisfied. Not the satisfaction that we know as devotees. Yeah. What's the satisfaction of a devotee? Someone could say.
Chanting Hare Krishna.
Chanting Hare Krishna, yeah. Simple as that. You could say other things as
Praising the
well, like,
Lord, praising the Lord and devotees and serving devotees
yes, serving devotees. Yeah.
and pleasing the Lord.
Praising the Lord. Praising the Lord. Yeah, praising the Lord.
Pleasing.
Pleasing, so yeah, pleasing Krishna. And that's what Krishna wants Arjuna to do. To you satisfy my senses. So it's quite simple. So, for us, if we would rather chant good 16 rounds than have a detached house in the country. You understand? We're rather, that's our satisfaction. We just, okay, whatever Krishna has given us, fine. But let me just have the opportunity to serve Krishna. If I can have the opportunity, let me chant, let me focus on Krishna's holy name. And from that, you can be completely satisfied. And then you won't feel the need for artificial things. Prabhupada said this thing: simple living, high thinking. And you can't live, well, there are some people who are trying to live simply, even materialistic persons. Yeah. But especially as devotees, if we can, the more we satisfy Krishna, the more we can see through the illusion and be satisfied just with associating devotees, having some service, and Krishna will provide everything. So that's why here Bhagavad Gita is very interesting, especially in the beginning here, because Arjuna is acting like a typical materialist. Yeah, he's thinking of himself only. Yeah. Anyway, going on a bit here, but is there any comments or questions on that? Anything to add? Okay, let's read another verse. Mother Rajkishore, you can read the next one, text 36. Just before we do that, let me have a look at the commentary, so there's something else here. Here, Baladev Vijayabhusana brings up about the definition of Janardhan. Yeah, in other words, as we said in the beginning, that he calls Krishna Janardhan, because if he kills them, there'll be no sinful reaction. But if Arjuna does, there will be sinful reaction. But there won't be, because he's doing it on behalf of Krishna. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah. Okay, let me just read this here. The Pandavas, of course, won the battle and took the throne. Yet they remained in power for only 37 years. Arjuna's conviction is that brief kingly pleasures are not worth the sinful reactions of suffering in hell for millions of years because of killing friends, guru, grandfathers, cousins, and other relatives. Arjuna concludes that planning for enjoyment while overlooking future suffering is foolish. He continues this reasoning in text 36. Interesting, because is Arjuna correct or not here? He is correct. He's correct. Yeah. In other words, just planning for enjoyment while overlooking the future is a foolish proposal. It's got these two words called Shreyash and Prayash, where you act now for immediate satisfaction, but then because of what you're doing, you're going to suffer reactions. So Arjuna is correct, but what he's not missing is that it's been ordained and sanctioned by Krishna. So there is no sinful reaction. Yeah, he should do it as an act of devotion. And that's what Krishna is going to bring him to. Yeah, bring him to his senses, his transcendental senses. Okay, Maharaj Kishore, you could read text 36.
Okay, text 36. Papam eva asare asman hatwaitan atataina tasman arhavayam hantum dharta rastran sabandavan swajanam hi katham hatva sukhina shyama madhava. Translation: sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune? And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? Purport: according to the Vedic injunctions, there are 6 kinds of aggressors: a poison giver, number 2, one who sets fire to the house, number 3, one who attacks with deadly weapons, number 4, one who plunders riches, number 5, one who
actually now this sounds very familiar with me as well, because I think, remember last time we read, then we asked everyone to give the examples of each one of these.
Yes, yeah, we did this one.
And we had a whole discussion on the Mahabharata.
Yeah.
So I think
I was checking on your website. Yeah.
Perhaps it's me. Perhaps it's me who did it, who wrote it wrong on the video then. Yes, so it's my fault. Well, let's perhaps, although it's wonderful to read that again.
Yeah.
I was checking on your website. I think we have done until text 40. We
40,
need
okay.
to do from 40.
Let's go to 40.
from 41 we
I
can.
mean, it's nice to read it again, but it's nice to also make a little bit of progress as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I remember definitely going through that. We was quite excited. We were speaking about the different pastimes in the Mahabharata. Okay, so let's try again, Mother Radhakishore. You can go from text 40.
Text 40, okay. Adharmabhibhavat Krishna pradyushyanti kulastriya strishu drashta suvarshenya jayate varna sankara. Translation: when irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. Purport: good population in human society is a basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress in life. The Varnashram religion's principles were so designed that the good population would prevail in society for the general spiritual progress of state and community. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. As children are very prone to be misled, women are similarly very prone to this degradation. Therefore, both children and women require protection by the elder members of the family. By being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. So the different family traditions of religious activities should always engage them, and thus their chastity and devotion will give birth to a good population eligible for participating in the Varnashram system. On the failure of such Varnashram dharma, naturally the women become free to act and mix with men, and thus adultery is indulged in at a risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men also provoke adultery in society, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. Thank you.
Right, Srila Prabhupada. Any questions or comments here? Quite a topical discussion could come from this purport. I mean, we're kind of familiar with Srila Prabhupada, which is not only in this place, it's in quite a few places in his books, where he makes this not an absolute statement. I don't think it's an absolute statement from Sastra, but he's quoting Chanakya Pandit, saying women are not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. He says, so how would we explain that to someone who reads this, who kind of doesn't know Prabhupada? For example, Prabhupada, he makes these statements about women, but for all of Prabhupada's women disciples, they didn't get the impression that Prabhupada was a misogynist. A misogynist, someone who doesn't like women. There's some problem. Just don't like. Prabhupada was encouraging his lady disciples, was very much encouraged them, very much respected them, very much wanted them definitely to be protected, and also did not consider them less intelligent. As Prabhupada said, they are, and we can see, I mean, I know from my personal example, or for me, personally, I mean, I meet plenty and interact with plenty of ladies who are much more intelligent than me. So this is to be understood, it's not as an absolute statement. But anyway, how do you go about, some ladies, how do you go about explaining that? Or what does it mean for you?
Well, women think from the heart. When a woman has to make a decision, she makes it from the heart. She doesn't use it from the head. a man will always think, he uses his head to make a decision.
Yeah,
Whereas the women would think of from the heart. So it's all emotions and everything mixed together. So
Yeah,
that's when
yeah,
the
yeah.
decision can go wrong.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think, like, materially speaking, like male and female, they have different material facilities for performing their dharma in life. So you get what you need to do your dharma. And like men may need more intelligence to execute their purpose in life, which is to, you know, if it's a kshatriya, to like engage in warfare, which is very analytical.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And whereas a women's dharma is generally to take care of the family, which requires a more nurturing. Maybe we don't need that material intelligence that's required for setting out a battlefield army and things like that. It requires a different kind of
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, in other words, for instance, like raising a family, it takes a heart. Those who have children, I'm sure you know, it takes a heart. And it's something that, you know, well, in today's modern age, you get one-parent families, etc., etc. But as Mother Rajkishore correctly said, and where's a pastime in the, there is a pastime in the Srimad Bhagavatam that illustrates this point. We just recently, I think we recently read it in our Srimad Bhagavatam class. So you can identify that pastime, or I can give you some clue if you want. Let me try and think. Bhima wanted to kill him. Krishna and Ashvatthama.
Oh,
Yeah.
Draupadi's sons were killed.
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting discussion, very interesting topical point there, where due to her soft-hearted nature, she didn't want him to be killed because she didn't want his wife to experience what she had experienced, so her soft nature. So, but at the same time, Krishna told him to kill him, to kill Ashwatthama. So it's interesting how it played out, because he wasn't killed. He wasn't. He was killed in another way. He was greatly dishonored. But actually, Draupadi, isn't it? I always get Draupadi and Kunti mixed up. Draupadi is she was the one in that pastime, is it? Or was it Kunti?
Draupadi.
Draupadi, yeah. So her soft-hearted nature is won through, and he wasn't killed. And he wasn't killed. If it was just left to Bhima, he would have been killed straight away. Yeah, so that's interesting. And Prabhupada speaks in that purport as well. So, yeah, especially in today's day and age, some people may read these statements, and if they don't have much faith in Srila Prabhupada, or they do not know much about him, then they could easily get obviously get the wrong idea of who Prabhupada is and what he's saying. But I think these points are very valid that you brought up here, Mother Lavanga's brought up as well. Is that, how did you describe it, Mother Lavanga, that we needed for...
whatever you need to execute your particular dharma.
Yeah.
So, I mean, women just have different intelligence. Men may be quite, like brahmanas are traditionally men, but I mean, I think, generally speaking today, it's like women are generally probably more intelligent than men in many ways.
Yeah, you see that, as I said.
If everyone is living according to Varna Ashram, you will probably find that it's noticeably different in the intelligence between men and women. If you're living in a like dharmic society or a Varnashram society.
Yeah, and we have to say that you could say in another sense, you could say there's some things, for instance, bring up a family situation that there's some situations where men are absolutely brainless. They've got no idea. But a lady has got much more ideas how to deal with the mood of the children and this and that. But there's somewhere the man's intelligence is not needed or not wanted, and it's pretty useless. Whereas a lady,
And maybe the word intelligence means like analytical skills or logical skills.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a mechanical intelligence. Maybe he's talking about. That's
yeah. But it's a fact as well, isn't it? That we have to admit that when we look at great philosophers, the great acharyas, for the most part, they're all men. I mean, there are some exceptions. Janava, Mata, the wife of Lord Nityananda. But generally, you're going to see the acharyas in different philosophical disciplines. They, again, it's the analytical aspect of a man. Yeah. It's interesting how the man's intelligence is there to, in one sense, to support the household, to maneuver in the world to bring in money. And the intelligence of the lady is to take care of the field. But the intelligent man is to gather the resources. Yeah, it's interesting. So, but I'm just bringing up this point because we don't want to misunderstand this Prabhupada when he brings these points out. We shouldn't think that he's a misogynist or Prabhupada is not. He's just educating us according to principles of Dharma, as we have discussed. Because I bring this up, it's quite because for many years I was doing the Friday night Sangha, and anyone sits in there to that Sangha, anyone comes in the door and sits down, and sometimes new people come in, or they just come to just walked in the door and they happen to sit down and we're reading Bhagavad Gita, and then we read statements like this. It really takes some explaining, It takes some explaining, So we should be ready to explain it. And again, I think it's according to our faith as well. Because we've experienced the wonderful nature of Krishna consciousness, we can understand what Prabhupada is not implying here. As also said, there is, examples of women who can maneuver in the world and, lead things. There are examples. Like just some going on a bit, but there is an example where remember it was mentioned in the Ramayana, Sita, or it was in the but trying to say that the queens of the great kings, the Yudhisthira, or the Queen Kunti, and like that, then they would expertly take care of thousands of servants in the house and direct the whole massive household. There'd be a very intelligent lady behind it, behind the whole hundreds of servants for maintaining the house and setting things up for greeting guests, etc., etc. So anyway, but the other point here, let's perhaps, if anyone wants to make any comments on this.
Yes, Prabhu, I want, when we're talking now, it's a very painful subject, and I'm trying to, we have to evaluate who we're talking to, because people are different levels. But I understand why Krishna didn't open Bhagavad Gita for so many years. I couldn't read it. I was opening it for 5 years and I fallen asleep. I opened and fallen asleep for many years. So I learned Bhagavad Gita by lectures, from lectures first, and then only read very slowly. Yeah. But another point was, I wanted to say, because my mentee girls, are mentorship ladies, and I was thinking, mentoring girls. And because boys a little bit, they have difficulties because they mentor is very young, he's 26 years old, and for old it's a bit. They wanted to combine group and to see how it works, and they said if it works we can have common mixed group, Prabhus and ladies together with Jambavati. I said okay, let's do test, for a couple of them. And when I told my girls, you had to see them. They all like cats, stand against, angry, making sound. We hate men. We don't want men. We don't want to be with them in the group. What I felt so guilty because
Okay. Yeah, I
I'm
think it's,
discriminatory, I don't care.
yeah,
Because
just in case somebody who can't understand, I think what you're saying, because I think somebody that looks like they can't understand what you said there. I think basically you said that you tried as an experiment just to see, have a mixed group of men and women in your mentorship, but you
yes,
found it didn't work. It wasn't the
didn't
same
work.
dynamic.
Because girls, what they said, no, they said, we don't want men in our group. We hate men.
They want a break from.
You understand? So it was very strange. It was very strange, and I felt a bit guilty. And when we had meeting, we felt nobody said anything.
But
They
that's
felt
interesting. But that's interesting as well. I think Prabhupada says Prabhupada says that a civilization which doesn't understand the need for separation between men and women is just like an animal society.
yes.
Prabhupada says that. And of course, in the West, that's completely they can't relate to that at all. But still, some places, we see the East Muslim countries and other places, and some places in India as well, that's still very much kind of understood that separation is helpful.
Yeah,
So
separation is needed. Separation is needed, definitely. Yeah, and I was still wanted to
experience that. Yeah,
I wanted to combine groups because men are coming and say, Jambavati, we need little bit somebody's more senior, to give to support us and questions. And my girls are forcing, no, Jambavati, we need intimate group, only girls. Only girls. I said, okay, leave it.
Yeah, Madhavananda points this out, that in our Sangha, that there should be many different types of Sangha to facilitate different types of needs. So this is one particular Sangha. It's like a class discussion and I'm leading it and like that. But then there's another type of Sangha that's needed as well, where it's just the ladies. And another type of Sangha where it's just men. Like I just had a Sangha on a Zoom just before this one with devotees from Scotland and all men.
Yeah,
So,
I'm leading Russian Sangha for only ladies, Monday, that's why I'm running Mondays at 7 o'clock, only for ladies. And we're discussing different questions, because there are, Guru is good, man is good, but woman is different. We can't open our heart to man, whatever good he is. Man, but what's problem? Not problem, but funny thing. A lady can understand a man because man came from a lady, but opposite cannot. No, I'm being serious, because mother, she's mother for son and for daughter. They came both, but man cannot understand woman's things. So this is a bit funny, but what can we do? Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. All right, let's look at it and move on from that. We can probably visit it again. Prabhupada mentions it more than one time in Bhagavad Gita. But then Prabhupada, here in this verse, the word is Vana. Is it here? Vana Shankara. Yeah, Vana Shankara. Progeny. Yeah, so that's when children brought into the world in an irreligious way. So I know this was Arjuna is bringing up a point here that if all the men are killed, then there'll be no one to protect the women. The women will be taken advantage of by unscrupulous men. Then the world will be filled with of unwanted children. In other words, they will not be religiously inclined. Yeah, because of the circumstances of their birth. So they will be inclined to irreligious activities. They will be disinclined to honoring the Shraddha ceremony, and therefore, it will cause chaos in society. And I think the next verse carries on. So let's have someone else to read who hasn't read. Please go ahead. Text 41.
I can read.
Yeah, go ahead. And this verse continues the same vein. Yeah, go ahead.
Sankaru
Narakayev kulkhanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro hosham luptapindo dakrakriyaha. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. Purport. According to the rules and regulations of fruitive activities, there is a need to offer periodical food and water to the forefathers of the family. This offering is performed by worship of Vishnu because eating the remnants of food offered to Vishnu can deliver one from all kinds of sinful reactions. Sometimes the forefathers may be suffering from various types of sinful reactions, and sometimes some of them cannot even acquire a gross material body and are forced to remain in subtle bodies as ghosts. Thus, when remnants of prasadam food are offered to forefathers by descendants, the forefathers are released from ghostly or other kinds of miserable life. Such help rendered to forefathers is a family tradition, and those who are not in devotional life are required to perform such rituals. One who is engaged in devotional life, is not required to perform such actions. Simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of misery. It is stated in the Bhagavatam 11.5.41, Devarishi Bhutapta Nirmam Pitranam Nakin Karo Nayam Ranicha Rajana Sarvatma Ya Sarvanam Saranyam Gato Mukundam Parihatya Kritanam. Anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligation, and has taken to the path of all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay, thank you, Mo. Okay, any questions or comments on this? Again, Arjuna has a point here.
Well, here it says, anyone who has taken shelter of Mukunda, that means anyone who's a devotee doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, and that's a qualifier, and that's the further understanding that Prabhupada gives us in this purport. Yeah, but one who surrenders unto Krishna, then there is no, Krishna will protect one if there happens to be an overstepping of one's duty. Yeah, which there inevitably will be. We will fail in different ways because there's so many responsibilities, so many things to deal with. But if we're in principle surrendered to Krishna, Krishna is going to protect us. That's what this verse says here. But an evidence in favor of the need of this is in the person of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When his father died, then he went to do Pinda. Yeah, that was the cultural thing to do.
And he was a personality of Godhead, and he still went to do, even Lord Ramchandra. Ramchandra did it for Dashrath Maharaj. He did God. So Chaitanya did it for his father, Jagannath Mishra.
Yeah. So how come, so I often get asked this question, so how would you answer? A person's, someone's father may die and they're devotees, so what should we do? Should they do anything at all? Oh, it's okay, I won't do nothing, I just chant Hare Krishna.
I would say sponsor a prasadam.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Prabhupada gave a simplified version of the Shraddha ceremony for Vaishnavas. Simply you feed the Vaishnavas on behalf of the person that is deceased. You don't have to actually have to go to get a plane ticket to Kaya and find a Brahmin and do all the last rites for all of your family. No, because this verse, which is Deva Rishi Pudaptanenam Pitrinam, yeah. Now sometimes the discussion is brought up, okay, for one who's taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda. Okay, so who's taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda? Where we're trying to. Yeah, so devotees from a position of humility may conclude, okay, then I haven't taken shelter yet. I'm still trying to take shelter, so this doesn't apply to me. But actually taking shelter means you've actually accepted the process of Sudha Bhakti. You've actually been initiated into the process of complete dependence upon Krishna. You're actually practicing, you've taken initiation into the 6 angas of surrender. You have placed yourself at being, you've accepted discipleship of a Vaishnava Guru. So you have surrendered to quite a large degree. Yeah, you've taken shelter of Mukunda, you've taken shelter of the process of pure devotional service. So therefore, you're not obliged to all these detailed ritualistic activities. Yeah, we spend our time and our energy in serving Krishna, and we feed the Vaishnavas. So if a loved one passes away, now there might be a circumstance. Now it doesn't mean that we say if your brother dies and you haven't seen him for 2 years and you've taken up devotional service and the funeral comes along and you say, I'm not going to the funeral. Why should I go to the funeral? I'm just going to, chant Hare Krishna and say, I'm going to sponsor the fruit offering at the Soho temple on Thursday for him. That's it. I'm not going to, no need to go. Would that be, I suppose, asking the question, I'm giving the answer away. Would that be good preaching? Anyone could say?
Well, no, the person has to be a devotee. And even then, we are trying to be a devotee. That means we are still at the bottom level. So
now, what I'm trying to say is what will the rest of the family think about you as a devotee?
Your heart, that you're actually very heartless.
Yeah, it will be bad preaching, So sometimes this is mentioned in Sudha Bhakti Vitamini, I remember in the beginning part. So sometimes devotees have to be, they can't avoid ritualistic ceremonies. They may say there's a wedding or something, or some family thing. And if you don't go, already they've got some issues with you becoming a devotee. Yeah. And if you don't go to the funeral of Uncle Charlie, that's it. Just see. They don't care. They're a cult. Could be, I'm exaggerating it. Yeah. So therefore, sometimes we have to just play along, and we go. And we should go. We offer respects, and then but what we should not think is, if for some reason we can't go, or for some reason we don't go, we are not going to be touched by sin. Why? Because we surrendered to Krishna. Yeah, we have surrendered to Krishna. If for some reason we can't go, or something happens and we don't go, we have given our life to Krishna. But if we think that if we think that we don't go, we get a sinful reaction, that means we don't have faith in Krishna's protection. Yeah. Oh, I have to go to this, otherwise I'm going to get a sinful reaction. No. Krishna will protect us. But from the point of view of preaching, we have to be a little bit sensitive, I can just imagine, when my mother died and my different family members died. How can I not go to the funeral because I'm a Hare Krishna? I just, so I went. And of course, sometimes these places can, at this time, with sensitivity, of course, we can do some preaching, We are a bit sensitive about that, of how we preach and what we say. you know, I've been to funerals before, and persons actually are curious and they ask about reincarnation often at these times, so you get a chance to explain. Yeah. But any other questions on this or comments? And yeah, and here the verse is explaining what I was explaining before. Here, family tradition is stopped, the ancestors of such corrupt families fall down. Now, just finish on this point. What actually happened in the Battle of Kurukshetra is exactly what Arjuna was fearful of. What was that? Millions of fathers were killed, millions and millions of sons were killed, millions of nephews were killed, millions of men were killed, absolutely millions. 60 million men were slaughtered or more, 140 million men were slaughtered. So what happened then after the Battle of Kurukshetra? Yeah. Did it happen what Arjuna said here? Yeah. Anyone can say what happened after? Difficult question, I guess.
So many women became widows. Thousands of
Millions and
became
millions,
widows.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions and millions and millions and millions of widows, all crying. Yeah. That was the duty of Yudhisthira and the Pandavas, to pacify and take care of all those women. And that's what they did. They arranged for the protection and well-being of all the women who had lost their husbands. They wasn't left alone, unsheltered. That was what the Pandavas did. That was their duty. Yeah.
But Yudhishthir felt very bad that it was because of him.
Yeah.
So
If you
much.
want to really read the graphic description of Yudhisthira's lamentation or his
Yes.
state of mind, you read the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata, where Yudhisthira refused. He cannot sit on a throne. He cannot bring himself to do it. And he wants to do what Arjuna wanted to do. He wants to go to the forest. And he gives very good reasons as well. And it's a whole thing. That's one of my favorite parts of the Mahabharata is the Shanti Parva, where Yudhisthira can't bring himself to do his duty. Then eventually he becomes convinced to hear from grandfather Bhishma about Raj Dharma. Yeah. And then he takes up his duty. But interesting that the Pandavas, they're Kshatriyas, they're expert administrators, but they made sure that all the women were therefore after protected. But perhaps shall we stop there for today? And it's just 1 minute left. And so let's perhaps just stop here and let's make a note here. We'll begin next week on text 42. That's correct, yeah?
You're doing class tomorrow, Murli Prabhu?
Yeah, tomorrow should be okay. Yeah. Tomorrow, it's not next week. It's tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, we do this Tuesday and Wednesday. So let's continue tomorrow. It's very interesting points that came up this evening. Very good. Okay. So thank you everyone for your kind attention again. Giving us an opportunity to read and hear Bhagavad Gita together is very wonderful. And again, if you've got any thoughts or questions on these topics that we read today, you can always note them down and ask them tomorrow. There's an ongoing discussion on this. Okay. So thank you everyone. Wish
Thank
you
you,
well.
everyone.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for joining us.